morning. So we're here to talk to you about what it takes to successfully implement automatic record clearance. And as Attorney General Bonta shared, California is committed to providing record clearance relief to every person who is eligible and fulfill the promise of implementation. And in addition to California, Code for America has spent the last 3 years helping over 20 states design implementable and impactful policies. And now we're partnering with government to build that technology. So we're enacting those important laws. And a great example of this is our work in Utah.
Yes, so Utah was actually the second state to pass clean slate legislation following Pennsylvania, effectively putting the onus back on government agencies to identify criminal records eligible to be cleared and removing them from public disclosure. Meilani, what's so important about Utah passing the Clean Slate Act?
There's 2 things that stand out as important in Utah. The first is that this entire policy was based on the direct lived experience of those who are providing and receiving record clearance services in the state of Utah. So there were advocates, policymakers, individuals who were directly impacted calling for this policy. And we saw that because they were holding expungement clinics that were 500 people were showing up, and they were lasting for 8 hours in line in order to receive these services. And that was really the opportunity and the spark that allowed for these clean slate services to think about how do we move from this petition-based process into a process that's initiated by the state, where the state is really leveraging the data they have to provide relief automatically. And taking stock of the current process along the way, too. What was working for people in a petition-based process, what really wasn't, what was working for the government, what really wasn't, and adjusting as they go. And the second part is the policy stayed very focused on what the goal was, which was providing record clearance relief for everyone who is eligible. They didn't get mirrored down in what was technical modernization, as we see many policies potentially do, where you assume you need a brand new case management system with thousands of features in order to provide one really clear service. Utah was focused on designing a policy that would enable them to do this record clearance relief at scale. And as we know, Mike, implementation is the most important part of a policy is implementation, because it's how we get to the promise of relief. So what were some of the key lessons that we learned in Utah?
So I think the cornerstone of our Utah implementation was really creating a strong working partnership with our colleagues at the Utah Administrative Office of the Courts. So I want to give a quick shout out to a bunch of folks here: Heidi Anderson, Justice Simonis, Jeff Hastings, Paul Barron, Brody Arashita, Malia Fawad, Holly Shepard, and Casey Huggard. Because there's really no path to implementation that didn't rest on the close collaboration and thought partnership with everyone at the Utah AOC, from IT and data services teams to administrative and legal staff. And once we had that relationship established, we were able to quickly identify what were the key challenges standing in the way of automating record clearance in the state, so we could figure out where Code for America might be able to help. And one such challenge was one we find in a number of different states, which is that court records tend to be case-based rather than individual-based. So every time you interact with the court system, they take your information all over again, which is fine for the regular business of the courts, but it presents challenges for automating record clearance, because there we needed a more holistic view of an individual's interactions with the criminal legal system so we could determine their eligibility for clean slate relief. So Code for America's Clear My Record team worked shoulder to shoulder with court staff to develop technology to identify past records that were eligible for relief. We aggregated court data and ran it through an eligibility algorithm that was ultimately found to be 99.9% accurate by independent researchers at the University of Utah. And right now we're actually in the second phase of the project, where we're taking that eligibility logic and integrating it into the court's existing systems so they can continue to clear records on a going forward basis, so we can ensure people continue to receive relief into the future. Now, Meilani, we often talk about government adoption being the end game, like we see here in Utah. What is so important about government adoption for reducing the barriers imposed on people living with a criminal record and ensuring that automatic record clearance becomes the standard across the country?
Well, when we think about changing systems, we also have to think about sustaining that change. And you and I both saw that in Utah more than anywhere else. But From the outset, our Clear My Record team has grappled with what is the end game, and there has really only ever been one answer. It is government adoption, because the vision that we have is when we're successful, the system will meet the need of people with records, so they're able to remove barriers and no longer face barriers to employment, education, housing, and the opportunities that support their well-being and allow them to thrive in life. And so what this means for us is that government has adopted the policies, the practices, and the processes that provide record clearance services end-to-end for people automatically. And in that world, Clear My Record doesn't need to exist, and we really think that's a good thing because we want to put ourselves out of business so that government is fully able to meet the needs of its constituents on its own. And in our partnership with Utah, we were very clear about this from the beginning. So in our work, as we were building technology and co-designing these practices and policies, the goal was always that they would be picking it up, and they are the ones who actually, well, we started the work, they are the ones that will continue it, finish it, and grow it from where we are today. And ultimately, the work is not just about creating efficient processes that allow us to change and update criminal justice data. It's about changing the lives of the 1 in 3 people in the United States who have a criminal record. And so in Utah, we had this remarkable impact in a very short period of time. Can you talk to us a little bit about the results, Mike?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. It was way beyond our expectations. Right now, Code for America's technology is being used to clear the records for 500,000 people in the state of Utah. That's 12% of the adult population in the state. And 1 in 10 people in the state will actually have the record completely cleared as a result of this work. Work that would never have been possible without the tireless effort of community members, advocates, government employees, elected officials, and policymakers, all with the courage to reimagine what's possible. Because in a lot of ways, what we're doing is actually reverse engineering administrative burden, where an individual has to go petition the state police's Bureau of Criminal Identification and receive a certificate of eligibility. And then that starts a 90-day clock where they have to go file paperwork in person at multiple courthouses, potentially even having to go back for a petition, for a hearing. A process that's so cumbersome, only 2,000 people complete it every year. And had we continued with that status quo, it would have taken 300 years to clear these records. So in a lot of ways, what Utah has shown, along with the work in California and Pennsylvania, and soon in Michigan, Delaware, and Connecticut, is how to make automatic record clearance a reality, unlocking opportunities for those living with a criminal record, and doing so at scale. Now, Meilani, it really does seem like we're at an inflection point here with respect to clean slate policy. So I'm curious, what's next in store for the Clear My Record team at Code for America?
Well, you're right about inflection point. In 3 years, automatic record clearance has become a movement. So we have now 8 states that have passed automatic record clearance policies for a wide set of convictions. Most recently, Oklahoma, the governor signed the bill earlier this month, and currently we have Colorado sitting on the desk of the governor waiting for signature. And 8 is a huge accomplishment in 3 years, but that leaves us 42 more states, so there's still a bunch of work to be done. More policies need to change across the country to fundamentally reimagine this process. And so we're working with states, partnering with states, yours potentially, if you are not one of those states, to help them design implementable, impactful bills. And we still need to ensure that all these automatic laws are effectively implemented. So we are advising and assisting other states like we did in Utah on what it can look like for them to identify eligible records, update record-keeping systems, and inform people about the relief given and its impact on their lives. So we're really hopeful about the future and hope that you all can join the movement to unlock opportunity for millions of people through automatic record clearance. Thank you.
Thank you.